So last time we talked about the objects of meditation. The most common, number one, the first object that we hear often is the breath. And then we tend to breathe slower when we do meditation, to the point it becomes uncomfortable. We just need to remind ourselves that we should breathe normal, not faster, not slower. Some people tend to breathe faster at the beginning, faster than normal, and then end up breathing much slower than normal. But we need to breathe normal, just like every day. Because of the excitement at the beginning that I'm doing meditation and some kind of not knowing what's going to happen, some anxiety and excitement makes some people breathe faster. But then because they're trying to focus on the breath and the counting of the breath, and later on following the light along with the breath. Because of those and not being able to follow, so they try to focus, and then because that in and out of that visualization of the light and the breath has to go together, so the more focus they have, the slower they become. Or in order to have a good focus, they go very slow, and then breath becomes slower and slower. So what we have to do is we remember that we have to breathe normally, normal speed. So all we have to do is we need to know that we follow that. We just have to speed up that visualizations going out and coming in of that light. So first is counting the breath. When you exhale, you count 1, exhale again, 2, and so on. And try to make it to 21 times. And after some time, if you think that you're quite good with that, then you can do reverse. Count from 21 to 20 to 19, 18, 17, and so on. If you find it helpful, you can even close your eye to do the meditation. But we have to be aware of this following fact. Closing your eye can trigger the sleep. Again, the same obstacles to meditation. So maybe it is good if all the things are distracting, things in front of you are distracting, the visual objects are distracting your mind through your eye sensory, then maybe you can try closing your eye and meditate. But maybe soon you want to open your eye before it's too late. Posture is also important because it affects your mind. Our head, our brain, our head should be just straight and horizontal. If you bend too much forward or backwards, it will affect your thinking mind. Remember, this meditation still involves thinking, but streamlined thinking, not random thinking. That's all we are trying to do, to settle the dust. And the breath count is part of the meditation that brings the awareness of our mind and body. Let's try that for a few seconds. So, maybe there are lots of thoughts with that, but just continue. That's why I did 21 times. But then, after some time, so you can learn this, you can do like this. When you do this, ideally, you can do one of the two things. Ideally, if that counting is interrupted by chain of thoughts, not only you have the ambience of the thoughts around you, but also you trace after one of those thoughts and carry it away. So now you're really interrupted. So you have to go back to number 1 and count from there. If you just have some ambience of the distractions, but you're still with the counting, then keep going. You understand? There's some difference. Because if you go after just one of the things around you triggered, and then you lost that connection with the counting, now you have to go back to one. And then you can try not just counting, but also think of you put a number, visually put a number for each breath, and then you focus on that number. Each time when the breath come out, you have a different number and back. You can do that. You're updating that object a little bit. Then you can color that breath. And usually we suggest to start with the blue color, and count the breath. So when you have these numbers or anything visual, then you have a question of, because visual is a form. Once it is visual, it is a form. One is a form, you know what is it? It takes space. So now you may have question of where and how far, how high, how low, right? So it can go down to your navel level, the belt level. When you inhale and when you exhale, it goes to the length of your hand, like this. So the light comes out from your nose as you exhale. And count and go back. It retracts, not a U-turn, but retracts and go the other way down to navel, and then come up and out. Count that way. And you don't have to do all of them. It's a good idea to try all of them and then focus on one or two of them. And then if you feel comfortable, you can focus. It's not to be, you're not easily distracted by anything when you do that. Then you need to upgrade that to next level.
Rinpoche? Mm-hmm. I do have a question from online.
Okay.
From last night. The question is this. When I start to meditate, the mind is never calmed down and I feel that time goes very slowly. How can I calm my mind, and how can a beginner meditator master the skills?
That's very natural. That kind of back and forth. The fact that you cannot concentrate, that mind wanders, and then the effort that you put to meditate, to calm your mind, that itself is a practice. If you don't have that, then you're already on that. Either you're not meditating at all or not even trying to meditate, like the other times during daytime, when you don't even notice that your minds are wandering. Or you're already on a very high stage, which is known as a meditation without effort. Most of our meditations, most of the time, is meditation with effort. Then there's various stages where at the beginning you put almost all time efforts. The moment you start meditation, you're putting efforts, and continuous effort. But after some time, you're better, but you still need to put efforts. So let's go most of the time you put efforts. But then it comes to a stage where you don't need to put efforts most of the time, but you still need to put efforts. You still have to watch and bring back your mind to the object. As long as you continue with your effort to bring back your mind, that is meditation. You should not have too high expectations, like I said yesterday.
Thank you, Rinpoche.
Mm-hmm.
another question from online. You said last night that each mistake in mind has a consequence in mind. We're so familiar with time and space, we can't think out of them. So it is good to do analytical meditation as a result. We're so familiar with time and space that we live in, analytical meditation is helpful. Can you please elaborate on how we can meditate on time and space or do analytical meditation to help break out of the construct of time and space?
I think I didn't go into deconstruct analytically the time and space last night. Am I right? I did not. I just mentioned that our mind is so familiar and associated with time and space. Whatever we think, we will associate it with one of them or both of them. We associate with both of them if we are thinking or talking about something that is spatial, something that takes space. We are not able to think about space if it is abstract. We just think about the time then. We associate with the temporal methods of analytical meditation. So it becomes, because it doesn't, take really space. Abstract things doesn't take space, but it takes time. So we associate depending on whether it's abstract or physical. If it's physical, we can associate with both time and space. If it's just abstract things like mind, feelings, emotions, we can, of course, if you got a fear, you can bring the surroundings of that. You can have a scene of that. Then it involves physical things, right? But the feeling itself is not physical, so it has to deal with the time. So anyway, that's just a little elaboration of how we associate time and space with our mind. But I said that because I wanted to talk about how our mind clings to the past things, and how our mind projects the future, assumed by that imaginary world that doesn't exist. So past and future. Where are we?
Where are we when time and space do not exist?
Do we exist then? On ultimate level, that's why the Buddha said, the nothing exists as we think, as we assume, as we perceive. Reality is different from what we think we know. So we think right now there's time, there's space, there's us in a certain way, as an individual person, one. So there are so many qualifiers that build that self. But in reality, we'll find that's not true. In reality, we'll find that time doesn't exist, that space doesn't exist. It's not that everything else doesn't exist but oneself. That's not the case. That would be very scary, right? You might feel like that would be like dropping into space. You exist and everything else doesn't exist. There you fall, right? All the way. That's not the case. There's nothing to fall. To fall, there's something to fall. There has to be ground to fall on. But if the ground doesn't exist, where are you falling to? For two reasons. There's nothing to fall and no surface to fall on. So one can be free from this fear. How to free from that
space.
Time and space. I particularly focused on time last night. So let's continue with that. It's bringing back to the present is freeing yourself from that problem. How can you bring back to the present? By knowing that past doesn't exist. Only future is the present, is the real life, is the real world that we live in. and being mindful of the present. And when you do that and get a taste of that, you'll be able to do it more and more.
Thank you, Rinpoche. Sonia.
Yesterday you mentioned differences between compassionate and egotistical meditation. And I was just wondering if you could expand on that, because if meditation is a non-discursive space where you're trying to come back from your thoughts, what differentiates self-serving, ego-driven meditation and compassionate meditation?
The method, the technique could be same, but the result would be very different because motivation is different. The result will be different because self-serving, egoistic meditation builds or doesn't go against the ego. So it doesn't take care of that part, which is the source of ignorance in the interdependence, the beginning of the whole confusion. So it doesn't help us to understand. The meditation doesn't become a ground, a support for the vipassana or understanding the true self. It just becomes, meditation becomes a worldly power of mind. It still becomes samsaric. It just becomes a highly trained person with the thinking power or focus power.
From online. Rinpoche, yesterday you said that our main problem is that we don't know ourselves, and through shamatha we can observe the mind of the present moment. How do we make a connection between this shamatha and knowing ourselves? How does working with shamatha get us to know ourselves?
Shamatha will tune your mind. It preps your mind to see the selflessness. But it cannot see the selflessness itself by itself alone. It sets the environment, good environment. It gives you a break from all these other distractions. So now once you can focus, like once the dust is settled, you can see things better. You just need to direct your questioning mind to certain objects, to deeper level. That's all. If dust does not settle, it's difficult to see. There's so many things going on. It's very hard to see what's behind that. So the shamatha helps you to settle the dust. So environment is good. Now you can really look what's there. You can see things clearer.
Thank you, Rinpoche.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So a follow-up question regarding the body. The body during meditation can rotate or swing from left to right. How does one keep still? And a concurrent question is cross-legged posture important and helpful?
Backtrack a little bit. I just want to say something more in general. I think the unity or combination of having more fluid, moving body and a still mind. And we have problem in general. We have the opposite. In the modern life, we have the opposite. And it's getting worse and worse. We have still body and moving mind. Too much moving, distracted, with too much information. With too much information, you don't know what to do. Too much information is a problem because it dilutes the real information that you need. So the mind is ever more distracted. So there's too much movements in mind. Well, with all this comfort and convenience that we get, that we don't have to go through the staircase going up and down, that we don't have to walk anywhere with the cars, So we are having less and less physical movement. So with the practitioners need to pay attention to this, that we need the combination of more still mind and more activities with our body, such as yoga practice, such as circumambulation. So coming to your question, these postures are important. It supports you. But if it becomes an obstacle to your mind, if it becomes a very painful, for example, so you cannot focus, then you have to accommodate to that. If you're physically unable to do that, then you should know that the real meditation is about mind, is not about body. When you can do the cross leg and so on, that's great, because it supports you, it gives you more help. But you can also do meditation without that. So with that is better. But if that is causing, if that's serving the opposite purpose, then you have to think about that. So yeah, movement is fine. And you're encouraged to do more stretches and movements in between your sessions.
As it related to movement, I think you captured it. The question was, if I find myself swaying or rotating and not staying still, what's the methodology? How does one keep still if that's,
out of control?
How to control.
Out of control sounds like, yes. Open your eyes. Don't close your eye if that is the case. And that should help.
Okay. Thank you, Rinpoche. Mm-hmm. From online. When we do shamatha meditation, should we continue to do one method, or should we change the method from time to time? And I assume that question is either different shamatha meditations and or shamatha versus vipassana. But the question is, should we focus on one meditation and stay with that meditation?
If you're at the very beginning, you want to try different things, which one is working better for you, then you can try those things that you've learned. But once you chose one of them to practice, then it's good to practice with that without jumping from one to another for that session.
Thank you, Rinpoche. Mm-hmm.